They shoved my wife, right there on our own front porch. 3 men in cheap-looking uniforms, barking HOA nonsense like they were some kind of authority. One of them, tall, red-faced, sunglasses like he thought he was in a movie, poked her chest with 2 fingers and snapped, "You're in violation. Move inside and stay there." I was still inside, fixing the loose drawer in the kitchen when I heard the thud. I stepped out, and everything stopped. My wife was on the ground, her garden basket spilled across the steps. One of the HOA goons had the nerve to say, "Stay out of this, sir." She refused to comply. He looked me in the eye like I was just another neighbor he could scare. He had no idea. "You touched my wife?" I asked calmly, stepping down the last stair. Another guy chuckled. "It's his HOA business. You signed the community agreement." That's when I smiled. Because we didn't. We bought this house in cash from an estate sale. No HOA contract, no binding rules. And even if we had, laying hands on my wife, that's not an HOA issue. That's war. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't touch them. Instead, I looked the tall one dead in the eyes and said, "You've got exactly 60 seconds to leave this property, or you'll be the one needing compliance." He scoffed. "What are you going to do, old man?" And that's when I took a step forward, and he took one back. Good. He didn't know yet. Didn't know what I used to do for a living. Didn't know what was buried in the ground behind the shed. Didn't know the house was wired. I didn't just move here to retire. I moved here to disappear. But if they wanted to drag me back into the fight, they just made the worst mistake of their lives.
They came back the next morning, this time with backup. 6 of them. 2 SUVs, matching jackets, clipboards in hand like they were prepping for a raid. One of them even brought a drone. I watched it buzz above my roofline like some kind of suburban surveillance mission. They stood on the sidewalk, pointing at our fence, measuring the height with a tape like that was suddenly a crime. My wife stayed inside. I didn't ask her to, but she knew. These weren't regular neighbors anymore. This was personal. I stepped out with my coffee. Didn't say a word. The one who'd shoved her, the tall one, Davis, I'd learned, smirked like he'd won something. "We've reviewed your property," he said loud enough for the entire block to hear, "and you're in direct violation of Article 14C, fence height, unauthorized shed, unapproved exterior paint." I sipped my coffee. "You done?" Davis held up a clipboard. "This is a formal warning. Failure to comply in 48 hours will result in fines, daily penalties, and further enforcement." I looked him over. His twitchy hand, oversized badge, the way his voice shook at the edges. They always shake, the ones who've never seen real authority. "You're trespassing," I said evenly. "This isn't HOA land. Check the parcel lines." "We have the maps," another guy barked. "Good," I said. "Then you'll know this house isn't under your control." They didn't respond. But Davis didn't back down either. He leaned in, lowering his voice. "You think you're untouchable? These rules apply to everyone." "Even those who didn't agree to them?" I asked. He paused. He hadn't considered that. He was used to people folding. But I wasn't people. And then, just as I turned to head back inside, he made his final mistake. He said, "You'll regret not following orders." I stopped, mid-step. Orders? That word echoed. I hadn't heard it since Fallujah. I turned my head just slightly. You ever give an order with a gun pointed at your head? He didn't answer.
That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew what was coming and I needed to be ready. I spent hours in the garage digging through the crates I hadn't touched since retiring. And not the weapons. I wasn't going there yet. Just the paperwork, maps, deeds, blueprints, every inch of this land, every document proving this house wasn't part of the HOA's jurisdiction. I even found the signed county waiver from back when the neighborhood was still under development. Our property was never annexed. But I knew paper wouldn't stop people like Davis. People drunk on fake power. They didn't want truth. They wanted control. At 6:14 a.m. sharp, a loud clunk hit my front porch. A thick orange notice nailed, yes, nailed, into the wooden beam beside our front door. Final enforcement notice. HOA action pending. Eviction authorized. My wife just stared at it. Her hands were shaking. She whispered, "They can't do this." I took it down slowly and looked at the signature at the bottom. But it wasn't Davis's name this time. It was someone else. Karen Whitmore, HOA president. The queen herself had entered the game. She hadn't shown her face before, probably hiding behind her little enforcers, but now she wanted a fight, and she'd get one. By noon, she rolled in like she owned the street. Black luxury SUV, vanity plate that literally said, "Rules RUZ1," and a megaphone in hand. I watched from the window as she stood on the sidewalk shouting to the neighbors. "This man refuses to follow community standards. He is endangering your property values. He will be removed." Some people watched silently. Some nodded. Most just avoided eye contact. But one thing was clear. She was making it a public spectacle. Now it was fine, because I had a few public surprises of my own. And the first one was already on its way. A call I'd made last night to an old friend, someone who didn't care much for HOAs, especially fake ones, someone who used to clear minefields while Karen decorated gazebos, someone who by morning would make sure she knew exactly who she'd picked a fight with, and why that was a terrible idea.
The next day started quiet. Too quiet. No clipboard patrols, no megaphone, no Karen screaming about grass hide or community unity, just a strange, forced calm hanging over the cul-de-sac. That's when I knew. They were planning something. At exactly 10:07 a.m., a white pickup truck pulled up. County seal on the door. 2 men in reflective vests stepped out and walked straight to my curb with a set of orange cones and a "Utility Work Ahead" sign. I opened the front door. What work? One of them barely looked up. Routine inspection, pipe access. They weren't from the county. Wrong boots, wrong tools, no clipboard, no IDs. And the moment I stepped closer, one of them reached under the tailgate. He was trying to stall me. I heard it before I saw it, metal grinding on asphalt from the side yard. I ran, turned the corner, and there they were. 2 more fake workers at my fence, one holding a circular saw, the other already halfway through my cedar panel. They were cutting my fence down. On my property. No notice, no warning, just destruction. And right behind them, Karen stood at the edge of my lawn in a full pantsuit, arms folded, sunglasses perched like she was directing a demolition. "You were warned," she said, smirking. "You chose to ignore authority." I walked straight past the workers and up to her. "You're trespassing." She smiled wider. "Actually, your yard is considered common space under HOA Clause 12. We're within our rights to remove violations." Wrong. Again. I pulled out a folded document from my back pocket, the original plat map, stamped and signed. "This entire lot is independent. Your HOA has no legal hold here." She didn't even look at it. "I don't care," she hissed. "You think papers scare me?" "No," I said, stepping back. but you should be scared of who I sent them to." Just then, another car pulled up. Black Crown Vic, government plates. Out stepped a man in a plain shirt and boots, badge on his belt, folder in hand. Karen blinked. "Who's that?" He walked up beside me, didn't even look at her. "Ma'am, step away from the property." Karen scoffed. "Who do you think you are?" He finally looked up. "Federal Land Inspector. We got a call about impersonation of municipal workers and property vandalism. I've reviewed footage. I've reviewed ownership. You're done." The color drained from her face. But I wasn't done yet. I leaned in, just enough so only she could hear. "You brought saws. I brought surveillance. This entire house is wired, corner to corner. You didn't just violate HOA rules. You broke federal laws." For the first time, she didn't speak. She just stared. Because in her twisted little world of fake fines and phony notices, she had finally run into something real, and it was about to bury her.